Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Oluwatosin. In case this is the first time you are seeing my channel, and please do well to subscribe. In this video, we are going to be learning how to draft and then cut a princess that bustier with you. In this video, we'll be drafting on our pattern paper first before transferring all that we have drafted to our main fabric. This is the outcome of the bustier without yoke. If this sounds like what you're interested in, please come along with me while we dive right into the video. This video is going to be absolutely beginners friendly. The basic measurements you need to measure on any adult at all before you can draft out a pattern like this are the arm length, the shoulder to nipple, shoulder to the under bust, the nipple to nipple, the shoulder, the armhole. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be adding whatever allowance I would add to my main fabric to my pattern paper. So I'll be adding all my allowance first before transferring it to my main fabric. This pattern paper is not on fold of 2. The first thing I did was to divide a bust by 4 and then I added 4 inches allowance. The next thing is to measure the half length plus 2 inches allowance. So our half length is 17. I added 2 inches allowance. The next thing after this is to divide a nipple to nipple by 2 plus 1 inch allowance. So this person's nipple to nipple is 9. I marked 4.5 and then I added 1 inch allowance. You mark this in 3 to 4 places and then you connect this point together into a straight line. I hope my explanation is clear. Bust divided by 4 plus 4 inches allowance, half length plus 2 inches allowance, nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus 1 inch allowance. Connect all of this into a straight line. The next thing is on this nipple to nipple line, you're going to be marking shoulder to nipple plus half inch allowance and then shoulder to the under bust plus half inch allowance. Connect these 2 points into straight line as well, just like I did. I'm just going to label it so that you can easily understand what I'm saying. The next thing after this is to mark out a chest point. For this person's chest point, I used 7. I connected that into a straight line as well. Now, you are going to measure 2 to 3.5 inches depending on how busty or how big you want your cup to be. In the case of this person, she has more of side than bust, so I'll be using 2.5. If you are cutting for a very busty person, please use 3. Someone that is not too busty, you can use 2. So you are going to mark 2.5 inches forward, and on the other side you mark half inch forward, just like I did. And from the half length plus the 2 inches that you have measured, you are going to draw that line up to under the bust. The next thing is to divide our shoulder by 2 and I added 1 inch allowance. I marked the armhole line. For the armhole, I used 8, and then after marking the line, I drew the armhole curve. Now, on this armhole curve, you mark 4.5 inches downward. You mark that point, and you are going to connect that point to the point where the nipple to nipple line meets the shoulder to nipple line, and then back to the under bust line. I used my French curve. You can use your free hand if you can. The next thing after this is on the chest point line, you will go forward with half inch. On the chest point line, you go forward with half inch, and then you're going to connect this point to the point where the nipple to nipple line meets the shoulder to nipple line. Then I proceeded to marking out my neckline. This is a round neck. I used neck width of 7, on fold of 2 I marked 3.5, and then neck depth of 3.5 as well. Like I said, it is a round neck. This is me now trying to cut out the yoke. The next thing after this is to mark where I want, how long I want my yoke to be at the middle, like at the cleavage area. I marked that. I used 7 in this case, and now I connected the 4.5 line that I marked on the armhole curve to the cleavage point. That's, I connected the 4.5 to the 7 inches, and I just shaded that region. That's to tell me that the shaded region is the part that I'll be cutting out. I proceeded to cutting this out, and this is what my pattern is looking like. This is the center front and then the side front and the yoke. so that I don't forget when I'm transferring my pattern to my main fabric that my fabric has to be on fold. That is why I'm putting this mark. This mark helps me to always remember that I have to fold my fabric before I cut it out. Now moving to the back panel, you still measure the bust divided by 4 and then add 4 inches allowance. You're still going to mark out your half length plus 2 inches allowance. So I marked 17, I added 2 inches allowance. Now this back is going to have zip. If yours is not going to have zip, you just need to ignore the zip allowance part. But because mine will have zip, I measured 1.5 inch for my zip. From there, you will divide your nipple to nipple by 2 and then you'll be adding 1 inch allowance. So I divided 9, which is a nipple to nipple, by 2. I added 1 inch allowance. Mark this in 3 or 4 places and you connect it into a straight line, just like we did when we were drafting out for the front panel. The next thing to do is to mark the shoulder divided by 2. I added 1 inch allowance to this and then I marked the armhole. Remember, we used 8 for the front armhole. You have to use that for the back armhole as well. I drew the armhole line and I curved out my armhole. Please, if at this point you are still with me and you've not subscribed, consider doing that, and don't just subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. So now I brought back my front yoke because I don't want to go through the process of measuring the 4.5 inches that I measured on the armhole curve for the front. You have to measure it on the back as well, so that the 2 points for like where the yoke is being joined to the rest of the half length for the front and back is supposed to be on the same length, so that your work will come out as neat as possible. So you can either remeasure or you just bring your front yoke and place it on it to mark that. And then for the back yoke, I marked 8, unlike front that I marked 7. I mean center back now. I marked out my neckline just like I did for the front, and on that point I went upward with 4 inches. Now this depends on how wide you want that to be. I mean how exposed you want that region at the back to be. So in my case I marked 4 by 4. Like I said, you can make it wider than this, you can make it a lot exposed, but for me I'm just going to stick to 4 by 4. The next thing to do is to measure your shoulder to the under bust, like shoulder to waistline. In this case I marked mine, and after this I'll start drafting out the darts for the back panel. So on my nipple to nipple line I went forward with 1 inch and then I came inward with 1 inch. You're going to connect these 2 points to the waistline point that you have marked. I hope what I'm saying is clear. The next thing to do after this is to connect that point to the waistline just like I did, and you can now start transferring your body measurements into your pattern. So I divided a bust by 4. I added 2 inches sewing allowance, then the waistline divided by 4 plus the 2 inches allowance I'm supposed to cut out that I'm currently folding. I mean for the one that is serving as the dart. And then plus the 2 inches allowance for sewing. That is why it is appearing straight, because when I take out the dart, the shape will come out on the waistline. I hope that's clear. You can now cut out your pattern. Now you remember that we added zip allowance to this pattern, but my zip is going to start from my waistline downward, so the zip will be on the lower part of this dress, not on the half length at all. That is why I'll be taking out the zip allowance. If your zip is going to extend to the back like up, you should not take out your zip allowance. I'm taking out mine because my zip will start from my waistline downward, so I took out the zip allowance, and I'm still going to cut out a portion from it because it will have modesty panel at the back and eyelet. The back will be snatched. So I measured what I want to cut out. If you don't understand how to sew a dress that has modesty panel, I have a detailed video on that. I'll be putting the link to that video up and then in the description box down below. When I was done cutting, I transferred to my main fabric, which is what you are seeing now, and then I cut out the lining. I just added like half inch to the main fabric. That is the half inch I'll be using to join each piece to each other, because I already added my sewing allowance on my pattern when I was drafting. I cut out my main fabric for front, I cut out the main fabric for the back as well. I cut out the lining. Like I said, don't forget to add half inch that you'll be using to join all your pieces together, and the one you use to join the yoke to it too. For the yoke, I used skin mesh to cut it for the front and for the back, and I cut lining for the back as well. So in my next tutorial, I'll be talking about how to stitch all of these pieces together.
You should watch out for that video if you're interested in knowing how I stitched all those pieces together. Here is the outcome of mine when I was done sewing with the yoke. I'm going to be talking about it extensively in my next video. So thank you so much for sticking with me from the beginning of this tutorial till this point. If you are still with me and you've not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe, and don't just subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. In case you have any question, don't forget that the comment section down below is always opened to welcome all of your questions, and don't forget to share this video as much as you can. I'll see you in my next video.